Hi, I'm Matt, here in Michigan.
And I am Randle here in Texas. Today, Matt and I are doing a follow up to one of our previous call up episodes. We had already talked about the 5 most disappointing TV endings, so make sure to check that out if you haven't already seen that before you watch this one, because this time we're bringing you our 5 best TV endings. Now remember, these lists are comprised of shows that Matt and I have both seen, except for our honorable mentions, which are our own chance to get on a soapbox. So there's so many shows we can't possibly hope to have got them all. We just are going over our top 5. Let us know in the comments or on our Facebook page whether you agree with this, if we missed the mark. What are your top 5? We want to hear from you. But getting right into the list, number 5 on our list is Star Wars The Clone Wars. Matt, this recently ended. We really like the ending. We have a review up on it. But why do you think it deserves a spot on our top 5 best endings?
I love the ending to Star Wars Clone Wars. Actually, this is one of my favorite, I would put near the top of this list, but because it did come out just recently too, it hasn't really stood the test of time yet, so that's why it's coming in at our number 5, or that I'm definitely putting on my number 5. This kind of pays off a lot on a big relationships that we had throughout the whole show. A big part of this whole show was to show the clones, and not just as soldiers but as individuals, show their bigger impact on this galaxy, this universe, the Star Wars universe. One of the best scenes is after the ship has gone down. You have Ahsoka, and she's looking at the helmets of all of her soldiers. These are soldiers that were trying to kill them at the end. But even then, Ahsoka couldn't bring it to herself to kill them herself. Even though, they're turning on her because of their orders and what they believed was happening, she couldn't go and do that to them.
They may be willing to die, but I am not the one who is going to kill them.
I just think a lot of it really paid off. Everything hit the mark for me on this. Like I said, you want to see a lot more on this, definitely be sure to check out our review of the last 4 episodes of Star Wars Clone Wars. I just think it's excellent from how the story was done, the music was done, and there was payoff to what this whole show had been building towards.
Now, for me, one of the things that really strikes it, and you kind of hint at it, is that Ahsoka leaves the Jedi Order earlier in the series, and she has this big confliction about what the Jedi stands for, what she thinks it should stand for, and she has to kind of go figure this out for herself. She has to grow herself, and I love that her dedication to her decision. So even though she's back and she's working, and then Anakin gives her the lightsabers before she goes to Mandalore, and you get this really awesome, 4-episode arc in the Siege of Mandalore and the end of the series. It's that the characters act like you expect the characters to act, and that Ahsoka's like the bedrock, even though her character still makes no sense in the context of episode 3, but, that's for a different review. In the context of Star Wars The Clone Wars TV series, she goes through so much growth. She starts out very young, she grows, and at the end she is much, much more mature, and it all works together. There's no, just trying to fit it in or force anything, no pun intended. For me, the ending works because Ahsoka's character is true to what Ahsoka character is supposed to be. And it centers on her, not the main protagonist, not like Anakin and Obi-Wan. That's why it makes my list. The ending works for the TV series so well, and for the characters so well.
I agree. And one thing going into this show, we knew what it was leading into. We knew it was leading into the Empire and stuff. And I think that's one thing the show did well. It ends with the Empire. We have that finale. There's nothing more that we really need to see from Clone Wars to continue on. And I think that's what it did a really good job with. All right, now we're going on to our number 4 on the list. And number 4 is Battlestar Galactica. All right, Randall, why is Battlestar Galactica making our list?
All right. Matt and I had a discussion about this, and we're fairly certain that this one's probably going to be the most divisive choice that we've made on our list. I think that Battlestar Galactica deserves its ending and did it well, because even if you don't like how it ended, the way that the characters get their send-offs, like Adama gets his send-off, and you get the president's send-off, Rosalind, there's a nice symmetry to what they were trying to do from more or less the beginning of the series to the end of the series, where this has all happened before and all happen again. It doesn't bother me that it's kind of magical and mystical and religious in these contexts, because really, going kind of back with I said with Ahsoka, the characters continue to do what you expect the characters to do, except for maybe Duala. But, breaking point. But I can understand why some people would say we're upset with this ending.
Yeah, I can see why people are upset about this ending too. A lot of the questions that are left unanswered. Basically, the answer for that is, well, God or higher power, spiritual reasons. It's God basically decided. That's kind of why Starbuck came back as, however you want to look at it, an angel or other ways of this. But I totally agree with you. The ending for me, it worked for me. It goes along with the series. It isn't like this stuff is coming out from left field. This whole show was about humans running from Cylons and stuff to avoid being decimated. And we come to an end where we find an Earth, maybe not necessarily the Earth they were searching for, but their new Earth kind of thing. And I think a lot of people too are kind of on, well, I don't like the whole jump into the future and it's like our modern day world. I kind of like that. You want finales that have an end. And I think this finale does a good job of ending the show, but also kind of leaving it open that, hey, we could do other Battlestar Galactica shows, but not this Battlestar Galactica show. So there could be kind of parallel universes and stuff. And I kind of like the whole idea that you kind of question, all right, is this part of our past? Is this part of our future? Are we doomed to repeat our mistakes? I think it's a theme that we've seen throughout the show. It isn't something that they just threw out at us at the end. It's not like a new idea. I think it's something that they really did build upon the show. And I think that's what makes it a good ending.
It's not out of left field, basically. And honestly, one of the other things that gets it for me, and this is probably just because I'm kind of big into Star Trek, is there is a peace at the end with the Cylons, where originally they had tried to settle on New Caprica, and then the Cylons come, and there's a peace, quote unquote, which is really just humans being in concentration camps with Cylons in control. No, this time there's the Cylons split. The ones that want to go off and do their thing, they go off and do their thing. They let the Centurions go off and be themselves, be their own sentient race instead of just slave races. I'm happy that there is an understanding between the humans, the flesh Cylons, and the metalhead Cylons, and everyone can go their own separate ways. And like you said, that there is an actual ending, not leaving too many loose strings, just enough. I'm happy about that. So, speaking though of Star Trek, number 3 on our list, Star Trek: The Next Generation. What do you think of that one, Matt?
Well, it's been a while since I've seen the ending for Star Trek: The Next Generation, so I actually did a rewatch of it, and I'm glad I did. It still holds up. Star Trek: Next Generation is a great show. This is probably what really got me into Star Trek, was this show. And I think it kind of fits the show in general. It doesn't necessarily need to be like a serial ending, like a long point that we're basically putting to an end. We can do a more of a look at the whole show in general. And I like, even though we've used kind of the time travel a little bit, or possible past future things before, but I like the idea that we're seeing, kind of go back to the beginning, kind of looking at when Picard first gets on the Enterprise. I like a look back at the past, the present, and what could be the future. I think it does a good job of that. We also have one of the best villains, if you call them villains. I don't know if you can really call Q a villain, but the fact that we have Q doing it for this final episode, like I said, I guess he's kind of a villain, but not really, because he's helping Picard figure out everything in this, and he's done that in other episodes.
Help is
too.
A strong word.
Yeah, help is a strong word. He's pointing him in the right direction in this one so he can get to his problem. So I love that we have the inclusion of Q into it, and then the ending scene I think is just great. It just kind of reflects when Picard sits down at the poker table and kind of says, I wish I had done this sooner.
I should have done this a long time ago.
So I think it does a good job of wrapping up the show, but also kind of giving you a glimpse of what the future could be. And I think it does a real good job. For me, it hit all the right tones for this show.
Star Trek The Next Generation, it's a TV show out of a very different time. It's not serialized. I mean, it is completely episodic. There's a couple of, 2-part episodes that span some few things that come through it, like Q and the Borg and the relations with the Klingons. Like, you see them progressing, but by and large, what makes this stand out is that this final single 2-hour episode, All Good Things, completely caps this series, and you get it. You're like, oh my god, that ended great, and it was just the perfect ending for that series, and one of the best endings, I think. That's why it's on our list, period. Like you said, it goes back to the beginning. It goes back to Encounter at Farpoint. It goes back to the Q continuum, basically putting humanity on trial and saying, you're not worthy of this. You can't just go gallivanting about the galaxy. And, Picard being like, you're just afraid of what humans might become. You're afraid of what we could do, our potential. And having to face off against Q again is great. And I love all of the past scenes, all of the details that they went through to redress the Enterprise, to, get Cole Meany in there from DS9 at the time. And Picard gives him a little, pat on the back. He's like, I trust that you can do this, because he knows that he has, that O'Brien has become a very competent, very successful engineer through his time on Deep Space Nine. He's like, I trust that you can do this, even though he's not the head engineer, basically. And, well, you couldn't get Will Riker to shave his beard, so they just write him off. It's like, we're not going to go to Farpoint. Just put it off. So there's a moment. It's so well done. And it hits on the points of Star Trek. It hits on the points of Star Trek The Next Generation. The characters do everything you expect the characters to do. And it's a good science fiction story. That's one of the best things. It's a science fiction show. It ends on a science fiction story.
A lot of times, finales feel a little different or a little off from the rest of the whole show. And this doesn't. This is an episode that you could put, earlier in Star Trek, but it also has the hints showing you that, yes, this is the last episode. It does feel like an end. It is wrapping up, yet doesn't feel foreign at all from the rest of the show. And that's why I definitely think it's one of the best finales ever in television. Now we're going on to number 2. And number 2 is one of my all-time favorite shows. It's Avatar, The Last Airbender. So, Randall, what do you think about Avatar, The Last Airbender, and why is it in our top 5?
Yeah, so I recently rewatched Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think about December. Man, has it been 7 months already? 2020 has been harsh.
Yes, it's true.
Avatar: The Last Airbender, what it is particularly good at doing is it definitely has some episodic episodes in there, kind of similar to TNG, but by and large, it does its due diligence to build up to this ending and deserve this ending. So Aang starts out at the beginning, and he really only knows airbending. He's a spectacularly powerful and good airbender as the Avatar, but he hasn't learned anything, and he has to learn how to do all the other bending, the water bending, the earth bending, and the fire bending by a certain time in order to just face off against Fire Lord Ozai. And when he gets there, they find out, there's this eclipse is coming, and it's going to enhance Fire Lord Ozai's powers almost to Avatar status. What's amazing about this ending is that it's all very deserved, and it is epic. This ending is a capstone on this series, which has some pretty really, really interesting things like the moon goddess, for example. Huge, story arc and the Fire Nation invading that. But no, this last ending or episode, the ending here, blows everything that came before it out of the water. Not only does it fit the series, it also just brings everything to a whole new level.
I totally agree. I really love this finale, and I think it really does give like an end. It shows you what each of these characters were building up to. I mean, you already talked about Aang and how him needing to master all of the elements, all 4 elements, but also it's able to keep Aang true to himself. This whole idea, even from the start, is that Aang needs to defeat the Fire Lord. But Aang, in all of his mind, he doesn't kill. He can't kill someone. So I'm glad to see the show go a route that have Aang actually be able to complete his goal while still staying true to his personal ideals and beliefs as well. And also we have great endings for some of our other characters. One specifically I want to talk to, Prince Zuko, and another great scene. And we have the fight with Ozai and Aang, and then we also have the fight between Zuko and his sister Azula. It's just beautiful. The music is excellent. You see the flames and stuff. You see how Zuko's basically learned to control fire, and how even though he knows that Azula is a better fire bender than he is, he senses how she is and knows that there's more to firebending than just the skill and being naturally gifted that Azula was. And he knows that he can face her, even though it's Katara at the end that gets the best. But it's the two of them working together that basically go from Azula and stuff. If there's any negatives I think about this finale is the idea that we kind of leave the Zuko's mother thing open to go on to the comic books and stuff. That's one thing that we kind of leave open, don't really have a finale. But as I was kind of talking about, some of our previous ones, is that this one has an ending for the show. The show is definitely the end, but also gives you a glimpse of kind of the future on other shows. We talk about the Legend of Korra is what's coming next, but kind of plants the seeds of that, where you see Aang and Zuko coming together and talking about the new world that they want to build together. So yes, that's why I think this is an excellent finale.
So, and I think it also does a great service to the other characters that, Sokka in this, he grows immensely throughout the last season. He's not a bender. He's just a normal human, just like us, but he becomes a sword master, basically. And you also have they had been kind of hinting at it throughout the series, but you start having the White Lotus, and they show up in force at the end. This whole series does a very good job building up its characters to get to this point, and then everything has a payoff. Everything has a payoff. The original idea behind Aang's firebending teacher, which ends up being Zuko in reality, but early on, is a completely different attempt, and he shows up and he has his part. Every character that is in the series in any way that might be a little bit important has a role at the end and ends up having a payoff for their character. And that's something you just don't see that often. So many characters are just left in the dust in a lot of these kinds of shows. But before we get to number 1, we each have honorable mentions. These are shows that either one of us has seen or maybe not seen all the way through that we think would be on our own personal top 10 or top 5 lists. So Matt, before we reveal our number 1 pick, what's your honorable mention?
Well, my honorable mention that I'm talking about is The Office. It's a show that I really enjoyed watching, especially when I was in college. One thing I want to talk about in my selection of The Office, it's kind of hard to pick sometimes your top endings. There's so much that goes into a show. A lot of times, especially long shows, specifically like The Office 9 seasons, you can lose interest part of the way through the show. So the fact that you even got through the show to get to the ending talks about the show itself. Now, The Office is one of those shows that I kind of lost a little bit of interest in near the end. After Steve Carell's character leaves, I think The Office lost a little bit of its magic. But all that magic, I think, is in this finale, even though Steve Carell isn't playing a big part. Yes, we do see Steve Carell at the wedding, at Dwight and Angela's wedding, but he only says like 2 lines, but his inclusion, I think, is a big part of that. It really shows that relationship that, Michael and Dwight had and stuff, and how important Michael is for Dwight. But this finale, I think, works so well because it shows everything that made this show work. You get the jokes, you get the pranks. I mean, Dwight's bachelor party is just absolutely amazing, the different things that go on it. And I think this finale gives each of the characters, some that have gone in and out of the series, it gives them a moment to show you, hey, this is what made this character good. This is why, we laugh at this character, what made this character funny and stuff. It definitely feels like this was an earned ending, at least in my mind. And it basically shows how, the Office is like a place that a lot of times during the show that these people really didn't like being at too much. You always think like, oh, Jim's going to move on and do better things and stuff. And at the end, he is, but they all had that reflection on how much the Office meant to them and the relationships that they had with their crazy coworkers. And it just mirrors what the audience or especially the fans of The Office feel when they watch the show. So that's why I think the season finale is really good. If you're someone that lost interest in The Office, but really liked The Office at near the beginning and stuff, if you haven't seen the finale, I suggest that you go ahead and watch the finale. You'll still pick up on a lot of the big points, and I think you'll be satisfied about it. I think it really captures what a lot of fans enjoyed earlier on in the seasons. And that's why The Office makes my list as my honorable mention for one of the best endings ever. So, Randall, what is the one that you want to talk about as one of your favorite TV show endings?
So, I've watched a lot of TV shows that's been very disappointing, but one that consistently kept me on my feet, and I was like, oh man, it's reinvented itself, but it's still the same, and I really loved the way it ended, even though I'm sad it ended, is Eureka. Man, this was back when sci-fi was still sci-fi, not sci-fi, and so many shows. I didn't watch it during its first run. I watched it after, and that's how I tend to watch my shows because I'm impatient. I don't want to watch most of them episode after they come out. I watch them in bulk later. This TV series does another very good job of pulling in all of its periphery characters, similar to what we were talking about with Avatar, and giving them all endings. But the very end, the very last episode, the very last scene is really the heart and soul of this series. So originally, when this series starts, the sheriff didn't want to be there. He was just passing through. He was actually a U.S. Marshal, just passing through, and comes across the crime, and he's very good at sniffing out crime and helping. And he didn't know what he was getting into in Eureka. It's such a fun series, and it ends fun. It consistently be fun. The last episode is fun. So many things are just dark and gritty and dour nowadays and too serious. This one's not that. And again, I'll go right back to the very, very last scene. Him and his daughter, the sheriff and his daughter, Carter, they're leaving town, and coming the other way is just them going into town in the original pilot episode. And they look at each other like, what was that? No way. It just ends perfect for a series that was constantly reinventing itself. Season 2 was different from season 1, but it had the same lovely feeling. Season 3 was completely different. Season 5 was 100% different. They had a completely alternate timeline. And it all ends up, it all works well. It hits a lot of the things for me. Characters being true to themselves, giving all of your periphery characters payoff, staying true to the feel of the original story while still staying fresh, and being an ending for that series that you actually feel is an ending. for me, it hits a lot of the points for some of the things that we've already mentioned. I can't say enough good things about Eureka. If you haven't seen it and you like feel good sci-fi, I highly recommend you give Eureka a look.
So now, Randall and I, we are going on to our number one. And number one is Breaking Bad. I think Breaking Bad is one of the greatest shows ever, and I think the ending is no exception. But Randall, I guess I'll give you the first couple talking points about Breaking Bad. Why do you think Breaking Bad is so good?
First of all, I agree. Breaking Bad is one of those shows that is just one of the best shows, period. It had a vision from the beginning. It knew what it was doing with its characters. It gives you payoff for all of those characters. Pretty much everybody here has some payoff or some explanation or some ending. And obviously there's a movie too, El Camino, which you don't really have to watch for this to make any sense. But for me, it's all about Walter White. It's all about his ending and him going from the kind of timid high school teacher to the man of his own destiny, the man who can control things. Like he says that he is the person on the other side of the door earlier in the season when he's talking to his wife.
I am the one who knocks.
And at the end, oh yeah, he is definitely the person holding the gun on the other side of the door.
Yes, I love the show. I love this ending. And this is a theme that you guys have seen in a lot of Randall my reviews when talking about not just TV shows, but also talking about movies. And like Randall already mentioned about this, is the payoff. Does it feel earned? That's one of the biggest points Randall and I try to get. Does it feel earned? And this definitely feels earned. It's something that felt like we were building up to through the entire show. Like you're saying, Randall, at the beginning, like the Walter White transformation. This is Breaking Bad. This is about Walter White going from a person who you sympathize with, you kind of see as the main person that you're rooting for at the end being the villain. He is the villain, even though in a little bit you're kind of rooting a little bit for the villain at times. But yes, it does give the payoff, and the lies come to an end. A lot of it, all this time, Walter's basically saying, oh, he's doing this for his family, because of his cancer and stuff like that. And for him to actually admit to Skylar and stuff, no, I did this for me.
I liked it. I was good at it.
It made me feel alive. Even when my cancer was gone or I was in remission, I still needed this because, my life, I felt like, was kind of killing me instead of necessarily like the cancer. And I did this because it made me feel accomplished. I enjoyed doing it. Even the bad stuff or whatever. That's when you really see that Walter White is the villain. And then the greatest payoff, I think, for this was Jesse. All the horrible stuff that Jesse went to, the times that he was being manipulated by Walt throughout the show, and for him to actually have his, the gun in his hand, which he had before, earlier in the show, where, Walter White's like, hey, if you think I did all this one, like, kill me, kill me, and Jesse didn't, and then he's back in the same position again, and then, he's like, well, I won't do it until you say it's, because it's what you want, not what I want, kind of thing. And Walter's like, I want this. And Jesse was able to make his own decision, throw the gun down, and says, then do it yourself. If anyone gets like the riding off into the sunset kind of thing, even though it was at night, it's Jesse. And you really feel for Jesse. This isn't my original thought. I actually saw someone else said this, but I think it really captures it well. You kind of feel like Jesse is the survivor of a horror film, and Walter White was really the slasher, you want to say, and his little ride off is kind of, you feel like he just survived a horror film. And I think that encapsulates what I was kind of feeling and stuff as well. That is how you kind of feel as for Jesse. You really feel for him, like he's able to finally escape this Walter White, who before he called, the devil, and he can't keep getting away with this kind of thing.
Although I think that most people agree that it has a really good ending, there is some controversy. There are plenty of people out there who think that Breaking Bad should have ended at the end of season 4 when basically they off the established drug kingpin of the town, and that would have been a perfectly good ending. But you know what? I don't think so. I think that you need to see season 5. I think you need to see not Walt fighting for his life, but Walt become the villain that you're talking about. That's the full transformation of his character. Breaking Bad, you know? If you just get to the end of season 4 and you say, well, you know, that's a good spot for it to end, he's not all the way there yet. You know, he has not finished becoming. That's one of those things about the series. The people who made the series, they knew what they were doing. They had a plan. I wish more series creators actually had a plan. Looking at you, J.J. Abrams. In fact, stop making TV series. You don't have a plan. Have an ending to your show. Breaking Bad definitely has an ending, and I know there's controversy around where it should have ended, but for me, and I think for Matt too, without season 5, it's not as powerful an ending.
Oh, I totally agree. You definitely need season 5. This is what it was built up to. This is how it ended. This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
As Randall mentioned already, let us know what you guys think. What would make your top list for the best TV show endings? Randall and I can't watch them all, but for the ones we did watch, this is our list. Be sure to comment below. Also, comment on Facebook. We'll give you updates on what videos are coming out next, so look for those posts. If you like this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to see more of our videos. We got a lot more call-up episodes, flashback reviews, and then also when the new ones start coming out, we'll be reviewing those as well. For now, I'm Matt here in Michigan. Have a good day.
And I'm Randall here in Texas. See everyone later.
Next time on No Market Media. Please consider checking out some of our other videos.